All right, in this video, we'll be looking at Tulane School of Medicine secondary essay prompts for the 2025 to 2026 application cycle. Prompts typically don't change from one year to the next, but if they do in the future, we will update the resources on our website. Tulane Medical School draws thousands of applications each year, partially due to the fact that the average stats of matriculating students are a bit on the lower end for an MD program. So among the entering class of 2024, the average MCAT score was 509 and the average undergrad GPA was about 3.61. Just 1.4% of Tulane applicants ended up matriculating into the new incoming class. So if we factor in the accepted applicants who opted to matriculate into a different medical school, we can estimate that Tulane's acceptance rate is probably just slightly higher than 1.4%. So Tulane's history goes way back to 1834 when New Orleans was already a major international port city. So the medical school was established that year to help combat all the infectious diseases that people in the area were suddenly being exposed to for the first time. And that legacy for the study of medicine, and particularly for public health, runs really deep with Tulane, which is pretty cool. And it's something that might be worth mentioning in your essays if you have an interest in public health. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the prompts. And after watching this video, do be sure to check out our secondary essay library, which has sample essays for every prompt required by US and Canadian med schools, including Tulane, of course. There are over 1,600 essays total. We've also got a really great secondary series here on YouTube, which gives you all the best strategies for writing each of the 6 main types of secondary essays. All right, so without further ado, here's our first prompt. Tulane University School of Medicine's mission statement states, "We improve human health and foster healthy communities through discovery and translation of the best science into clinical practice and education to deliver the highest quality patient care and prepare the next generation of distinguished clinical and scientific leaders. Briefly describe the reasons for your interest in Tulane University School of Medicine. You have only 150 words to respond." So in any Why Us essay, the most important thing is that you demonstrate fit, meaning you're fit for the school and also the school's fit for you. So you can check out the Why Us essay video in our secondary series playlist for more details on how to approach this type of essay. But what's really great about this particular prompt is that the AdCom actually tells you, here's what we are all about, and what about your experiences and your goals align with our values and mission. So you should still do your research on Tulane's specific curriculum, clinical, service, research opportunities, that type of thing. And our essential pre-writing strategies video also has some really helpful guidance on how to conduct this type of research. But the prompt does give you a very big head start, which is great. So your job as the applicant is to think of times in the past where you've actively had to work to foster healthy communities or deliver the highest quality of patient care. So you might write about a long-term public health project that you contributed to, or a one-time interaction that you had with a patient that really significantly impacted you or sparked a realization for you. You just want to show the AdCom that you've already been embodying their institutional values and you're going to continue to do that as a contributing member of their institution. Then you will want to describe how particular features of Tulane's MD program will give you the chance to pursue specific goals that you have for your future career in medicine. A quick heads up though, the next prompt is pretty similar to this one, except it zooms into focus a little bit more narrowly on the public health and community outreach aspects of life as a med student at Tulane. So if those aspects are a big part of the draw for you, you should work on finding some other points to emphasize in this essay. So let's go ahead and look at that second prompt so we can compare them to each other. This one asks, what disparities in health do you believe are pertinent to the New Orleans patient population? How would you attempt to address them as a medical student at Tulane? You may support your answer by using past involvement working in a similar patient population to compare and or describe your interest in any student activities offered at Tulane or in New Orleans. You have 150 words for this essay as well. So with this prompt, you may notice that they actually give you some of the suggestions that we already mentioned for the first prompt, like describing how your past experiences align with their mission or how you plan to get involved on or around campus. And this is good advice for virtually any YS or leadership essay. But what should differentiate this essay from the first one is that the experiences and future opportunities you write about should be strictly related to your plans for addressing specific health disparities in New Orleans as a Tulane med student. So if some of your clinical work or service experience in the past has been related to addressing health disparities, you might write about how you plan to apply the skills and perspectives you learned during that time to your efforts as a Tulane med student. But be careful not to conflate the other communities you served in the past with those in the New Orleans area. The first question in the prompt encourages you to do some research about specific issues that disadvantaged members of New Orleans communities are facing. And if you're not already familiar with those communities, do take some time to get familiar and pinpoint some of the factors that contribute to those disparities, and then write about concrete actions that you could take as a med student to help address them. You may also want to start your research by looking into some of the 20 plus Tulane student-run community clinics around New Orleans, or partnership opportunities with Tulane's highly ranked School of Public Health and Tropical Medicine. Moving on to the third prompt now, we will switch gears a bit. And this one reads, who knows you best and how would they describe you? You have 150 words to respond. This one is unique. It's a nice change of pace from the first two essays. It's a bit more self-reflective, and it helps to think of it as a chance to kind of expand on or just show a different side of that version of yourself that you demonstrated in your personal statement. So your goal here should be to show how your relationships, personality, and actions influence the way that you're perceived by someone who knows you extremely well. It doesn't matter whom you choose as long as they really are the person who knows you best, but don't feel the need to differentiate yourself from other applicants by choosing someone that AdComs wouldn't expect. It's really not a trick question. Do also be careful not to fall into the trap of just listing a bunch of adjectives to describe yourself. Give a couple brief examples of things that you've done with or for the person who knows you best. Like, what stories would they tell about you if they were trying to sort of paint a picture of the kind of person that you are? You can have a little bit of fun with this one, by the way. Your best traits shouldn't contradict that of a great doctor, but it doesn't mean that they all need to be strictly related to academic excellence and professionalism. All right, these next two prompts aren't so much essay prompts as they are listing prompts. So number 4 reads, please list any leadership positions, clubs, organizations, paid work that you may have held. You get 100 words for your response. This isn't really a typical leadership essay prompt since it asks specifically for a list rather than a proper essay, and the strict word limit won't allow you to go into too much detail, but we recommend doing what you can to add to the details you already mentioned in the work and activity section of your primary application. One thing we emphasize in our leadership essay video is that leadership experience isn't always limited to official leadership titles or roles. So if you are in a position to guide or mentor or even just delegate responsibilities to one or more people, you were operating in a leadership position. And with that in mind, as you list your leadership experiences for this response, try to add a few words to describe what each of them looked like in action. That way, AdComs can get a really clear sense of the responsibilities you had and the choices that you made in that position. So depending on how much space you have left, you may also want to mention how much time you devoted or continue to devote to these experiences, any ongoing projects or programs that you're involved in, and any accomplishments or achievements that have come from them. So this next prompt is similar. It asks you to please list your hobbies and major non-academic interests in just 100 words. Again, you're going to be listing things with brief descriptions instead of writing an actual essay response. This one is a chance to show a side of yourself that you might not have been able to show in other parts of your primary or secondary application yet. If you listed hobbies in your work and activity section, you can repeat them here. Just feel free to expand and provide as much detail as you can within just 100 words. So like with the previous prompt, if you have the space, you can just mention how much time that you devoted or continue to devote to these hobbies and interests, any ongoing projects, any accomplishments or achievements that have come from them. So moving on now to the 6th and final prompt. This one is optional, and it reads, in what ways did the COVID-19 pandemic alter/interrupt your medical school application? This is the only prompt that doesn't have a word or character limit, so you can technically write as much or as little as you want. Now, a lot of applicants aren't really sure whether they should respond to optional COVID prompts, and our general rule of thumb is that you should only do so if COVID had a significant impact on your academics, your extracurriculars, or your career plans as they relate to your path to medical school. So remember that pretty much everyone was impacted by COVID in some way, but if your GPA or your MCAT scores really suffered, or you had a long stretch of time with no extracurricular or clinical experience at all, or if you experienced really significant personal struggles, then you might consider writing a response here. So in this case, you can think of this essay as a version of the adversity essay. Or you could also take the approach of writing about unexpectedly positive outcomes of living through the pandemic, like participating in a meaningful research or clinical experience related specifically to COVID, or changing your career plans as a result of the pandemic. Just make sure that you don't write about yourself too passively. So describe what actions you took to overcome the challenges you faced, what choices you made, and what the outcome was of your actions and choices. All right, and that's all for Tulane. We really hope this resource is useful to you as you work on your Tulane secondary application. And if you're looking for sample essays for any of these prompts or every other prompt required by every med school in the US and Canada, please be sure to check out our secondary essay premium example hub. We have over 1,600 essays in total. Take care.